Well, the two nations have strengthened ties in that partnership spanning at least 2 decades with the world's second biggest economy, as you said, committing close to 200 billion rand to the continent's most advanced economy. At the same time, granting Eskom that 33 billion rand loan as well. But how does this add to the economic trade sphere amidst, of course, that U.S. trade war as well? You saw him there, and now firsthand in studio, Mzwandile Mbeje joining us as well. Mzwandile, thank you so much for the time. But you were there as you saw these documents all being signed, these deals sort of being put together at the same time. I suppose one would say to themselves that we may not see the silver lining in South Africa's economy, but China certainly does, and that's what it's proving to be with all this money.
I think Arabile, China has taken a decision that it wants to tap into this market, which is really left unattended to, so to speak. Africa, for example, has got 1.2 billion people, and there's not a lot that is happening on the African continent, and we know the huge potential that exists here. So that is why when you look at what China does, I mean, before he undertook this state visit to South Africa, he first went to Senegal and then he went to Rwanda. So you can see it's very strategic. So he went to West Africa, so there a lot of infrastructure talk. He went to Rwanda, same thing. And of course, here in South Africa, I mean, South Africa and China, really their relations, they should be very happy with what is happening between them. So the biggest trading partners, and then they going to each other all the time. I mean, can you believe it that Xi Jinping is here for the 3rd time in a state visit? So it does show that he has seen the potential, particularly because South Africa, Arabile, is advanced, and if China wants to set up base, so they go to an advanced place. It's a gateway,
still
really
getting a foothold into the rest of Africa.
So that's exactly what they're doing. So even later this year, they will be co-chairing a FOCAC, South Africa and China. So you can see this kind of working together really that is really increasing, because China wants to really get a foothold, but of course South Africa also wants to get into the Chinese market. We're talking here 1.4 billion people. So there's a lot of products that we have here that can go into that market. So if we ramp up our interaction with China, indeed we'll be able to benefit.
One would question, however, and say that with all this money being thrown at us from China in particular, it puts us at the mercy of China in certain aspects. If they need something from us at a later stage that we perhaps would be unwilling to give under normal circumstances, this, however, then says, well, you're crimson tide and you kind of have to do it.
But I think perhaps the difference, if you look at how China operates, even if you look at the entire African continent, it's slightly different to how they relate to South Africa particularly, and China. If you look at what they do, let's say in your Nigeria, your Rwanda, for example, so the kind of infrastructure they've put there, so they've built airports there, they've built roads there, and then the kind of labor, it's not necessarily done by the people in those countries. But it's different when it comes to South Africa. It's more about investment. So what they do is they then talk about the projects that they agree on. So what sort of projects so we can do together. So South Africa is very much involved in what exactly is happening. It's not just an issue of throwing the money and then let's see what happens. So South Africa really, with its sophisticated way of doing things, is really able to perhaps identify certain projects that China can really then tap into as well.
This is a more concerted effort into Africa, as you've just spoken about, the countries that Xi Jinping has visited across the continent. Do you believe that it's a way for him to circumnavigate what's happening with regards to the US trade wars as well, to find a way perhaps around it, and just to say to Trump, I've got one up on you?
There's a lot of tariffs that are being put on either side. I mean, the US is doing the same, and China is actually doing the same to some of the products from America. But you know what's happening is that some of those products that come from America to China are products that we have here. So in South Africa and perhaps on the African continent. So if they are not able, for example, to access those products, here is the market, and that's where South Africa really needs to take the advantage of this. We are already selling a lot of wine there, a lot of rooibos there. We are even selling meat there. So you can see a lot of agricultural products that come from South Africa to China is increasing. So with these trade wars, really, I think China is actually though not declared, finding alternative way to go around what the US is trying to do. I mean, the US is more inward looking, and then China says, okay, you may be inward looking, but we'll find a way to fund their own infrastructure as well.
Yeah. This all happening, of course, on the eve of the 10th BRICS Summit. Mzwandile Mbeje, thank you so much for that. But right, of course, in the heart of things, as those deals were signed as well with China. Shante.